It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we all of a sudden move into a Wednesday. Gary, how are you?
Good. Let's start with this.
All right, what do you got?
All right, to show that we're right in the administration admitting what is actually going on. This is U.S. Treasury Deputy Secretary Adeyemo yesterday in front of the U.S. Senate Banking Committee, talking about Iran and the funding that we have allowed them to get. While the official, as we know, the official White House statement on this over and over again is that Iran, uses this for, uses the money that they get for humanitarian services because there's no other way that they can use it.
Right.
Here's Adeyemo yesterday.
Right.
Here we go. Let me just make sure I get this here right. All right, here we go.
So, Senator, you're right that in a democracy, money is fungible. But what we've seen time and time from the Iranian regime is they fail to feed their people and they put the IRGC first. Any dollar they have will go towards their violent activity before they deal with their people. That's partially why almost none of the humanitarian money has been used for humanitarian purposes, is they don't care about getting drugs and food for their people. But the difference is that the United States of America has made as a values proposition that we are always going to provide humanitarian relief for people. And that's what we've said is the only purpose for this money. So while in our country, money is fungible, in Iran, they've proven that any dollar they get that they have direct access to in the country will be used for the IRGC before it's ever used for their people.
Yeah.
So the administration is lying to you, just so you know.
Yeah, right.
Biden is, and it's well known, Biden, by opening up the dollars to Iran, remember, they've attacked U.S. interests 150 times.
Yep.
And it's well known. It's well known inside the government that they get the money, they use it for terrorism.
Yep.
Biden knows this. The administration knows it. John Kirby knows it. And they lie to your face so they can continue funding the world's leading exporter of terrorism, which helps keep the war in Israel going. It makes it tougher.
Oh, yeah.
For Israelis to get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
And then they use it against American soldiers have been killed because this money has been used to finance proxies of Iran.
Tens of billions of dollars.
Don't talk to me. That's what the U.S. Treasury Department knows.
Yep.
And they said
that's it. That's official. That's
right.
By the way, we had no doubt. Everybody watching it, looking at it, could see it for what it was.
The funny thing is, he actually used it because I'm like, what's he talking about? What he's saying is, well, this money isn't fungible. As soon as they get it, it goes straight.
Right.
It goes straight to it. It's not like they're trying to hide it or
Forget
anything.
about it. Well, no,
that's how we know. So they're actually using the fungible argument against the administration.
Right. Yeah. Forget about fungible. We don't even have to get into this entire discussion. They're taking that money directly, using it. This is the MO of Iran, by the way. Iran doesn't have a problem looking in the face, in front of all of the world, looking in the face of the United States saying, we'll do what we want. And they know this president is going to do absolutely nothing about it. In fact, he'll keep funding them. And then he'll put a port in Gaza to make sure that Hamas gets direct aid. That's not humanitarian aid. All of that's going to Hamas directly. We're using our service members, putting them in harm's way to deliver aid to Hamas, threatening Israel saying you need to stop or we'll pull everything, and we're funding Iran to no end, really. I mean, this isn't going to turn around anytime soon. And that's Joe Biden. That right there sums up Joe Biden, who he is. He doesn't care about, not only does he not care about Americans, he doesn't care about any of our allies. He doesn't care about any Western interests at all. He doesn't care about any of those who suffer the attacks of Iran's proxies over and over and over again. He doesn't care.
And there was no qualifying their statement
No.
at all. It was every dollar.
Yeah.
This is what we know.
Yeah. This is
Every
what they do with it.
dollar,
Yep.
whether it's charity, and the whole fungible argument, he's saying, well, no, they just take the money and put it to terrorism.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah.
everything that when Karine Jean-Pierre or John Kirby gets on there, or the president makes a statement saying that this money is being watched and goes towards the humanitarian efforts of the Iranians, they know it's a lie.
Yep. I don't know what it takes if after October 7th you haven't learned. But what happened? October 7th, instead of reality taking lead, oh my gosh, look at these atrocities. Look at how evil Hamas is. Look at the evil being done with the power of Iran funding them over and over again. Instead, it produced these radicals who are pro-Hamas, anti-Semitic to the core. Every day we see them out there, to the point now that they don't want the Democratic Party to have their convention in Chicago. We knew it was going to be contentious. We knew it was going to be a battle. It was going to be a war internally with the Democratic Party. But it's starting long before the convention even starts. The fact of the matter is we've been saying it since day one, since October 7th. Radicals on one side, everybody else on the other
side. Yeah.
And now there's again, if you have any questions, if you had any questions about what Iran was doing with their money, there it is.
Well, I saw that story and I went, this should be the biggest story out there.
Yeah.
I found it on Breitbart.
Yeah.
I didn't even catch Fox News covering the story.
Remember when
isn't that the biggest? Because
no,
the biggest story is not that Iran is using the money,
no.
But the biggest story is our government knows that all the dollars that Biden has opened up to the Iranian regime has been used to attack and kill U.S. soldiers, U.S. interest, and support Hamas, Hezbollah, and every single proxy of the Iranian government to hit Western interests.
You have that confirmation on record. It's there.
It's there. Right there.
Can't erase it now. It's there. It's in place, and it should have been. Remember when we touched on it the other night? Remember the fall of Mosul? And you said there was something else that happened, and I forget what it was, but when Iraq went back 3 years later and regained control of Mosul, and you said, and we came back and was like, that should have been the story. I mean, how big it was for Iraq to regain that, because that was going to be the difference between whether ISIS created a terrorism superstate in Iraq or long-term or not. Iraq had to get on top of that and regain control of Mosul. And you said that should have been the story, and it should have been. You know, every time I think about that set of events, I think about the fact that that story didn't get that kind of play. This right here is a critical story. This is a critical point. It's on record. And it seems nobody is listening.
Yeah. It's just, and think about it. It is the U.S. president, his own decision to stop what the previous administration was doing, which is freeze funds to Iran, because we all know this isn't like new news. Everyone knows.
Right.
Democrats and Republicans, everybody in Congress knows Iran is the number one exporter of terrorism.
Yep.
And everyone knew that when Biden did this, they would use that money.
Right.
The Biden administration denies it. And then you have the Assistant Deputy Secretary for the Treasury come out testifying yesterday saying every single dollar, forget about fungible argument, they take the money, it goes to terrorism.
Right.
It does not go to the people.
Right.
It's an amazing statement.
Yeah.
And I saw that yesterday, and I said, why isn't this the number one story?
Well, how long did that debate go on?
Right. Because why is the president knowingly funding our enemy to attack us?
Right. And there's no question now.
Any Democrat, can you answer that question?
That debate went on. And it was like, okay, we all know money is fungible. And he's like, forget about fungible. They're just taking that money directly, and they don't even care who knows it. That's Iran's MO. That's what they do. They scoff.
I want to play
Americans.
I want to play it again just in case somebody just tuned in late and didn't hear it.
All right.
Okay, this is the Assistant Deputy Secretary for the Treasury, Adeyemo, yesterday in front of the U.S. Senate Banking Committee. Here we go.
So, Senator, you're right that in a democracy, money is fungible. But what we've seen time and time from the Iranian regime is they fail to feed their people, and they put the IRGC first. Any dollar they have will go towards their violent activity before they deal with their people. That's partially why almost none of the humanitarian money has been used for humanitarian purposes, is they don't care about getting drugs and food for their people. But the difference is that the United States of America has made as a values proposition that we are always going to provide humanitarian relief for people. And that's what we've said is the only purpose for this money. So while in our country, money is fungible, in Iran, they've proven that any dollar they get that they have direct access to in the country will be used for the IRGC before it's ever used for their people.
Could you get any clearer statement that completely 180 degrees is different from what you're getting from the White House?
I mean,
could it be any clearer?
It takes all the debate right out of it. That debate that went on for far too long is over. There you have it. I didn't see anybody come out and counter him. Did you?
No.
I didn't see any statements saying that's not true.
No.
Or
no. Well, it's not a news item that they feel that they have to answer.
I guess.
Thinking about that, we'll get to that story about the former NPR editor and the story he wrote in the Free Press yesterday.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's wow because he's admitting exactly what's going on, which is exactly what we have said,
right.
And everybody listening to our audience believes is going on in the media.
Yeah.
Goes, well, yeah, that's exactly what's going on.
Right.
And some of the stuff is just, I mean, it's exactly the accusations that you and I have made.
Right.
And it said not only is the problem that they won't cover the stories, that they'll cover stories that they don't have the evidence for. Right. But when it's supposed to be corrected later because they're wrong in all the major stories, they just forget about the correcting of it. And he said, that wasn't happening 25 years ago at NPR. They would actually cover it. And he said Trump was the difference. Trump is where they just said, and we'll read parts of it, but it is just fascinating. Then Juan Williams actually came out and was saying the same thing. Remember, he got fired from NPR.
Well, look, and
he's as liberal as you can get. I mean,
sure.
He can't even make, but he's a real bad liberal because his explanations never cut it.
Well, he's an excuse maker, and none of his excuses ever fly.
No,
It's interesting watching this happen. You and I were talking in the pre-show meeting, what Barry Weiss has done there in launching the Free Press. It could be an incredibly important, I think already is, important media service if we're going to have true journalism.
Well, I was telling you that I couldn't find, I couldn't get through the paywall on my phone, and I did when I got in here, and it's like $80 a year. And the only thing I subscribe to, the only thing I pay for is the Wall Street Journal, but that's for mostly the editorial page. Not that they don't have some good news articles and analysis sometime, but the editorial page is much more conservative than the actual newspaper. And I pay for National Review because it's just conservative thought. Personalities, well, I mean, they get caught up. They get caught up in personalities like anything else. But to me, it's the freest. Not that I always agree with their articles by any means. Right. I agree with most of them of what they say, but you just know it's individual. They've got a setup where it's people that go in and they tell them, we like what you do, go write it.
Right.
Just write what you believe, write what you believe. And with the free press, I'm sitting there shaking my head yesterday saying, I need to get through here because how can I tell anybody that I'm willing to pay $80 a year to hear mostly from liberals who reject what's going on in the Democratic Party?
Exactly. Well, it's funny because I was thinking I subscribe to the Washington Post and the New York Times so that if you and I need full access to an article,
yes,
because a lot of times it's something they write something. This is the way the media works now. If one publication does a story, then someone else will do a story on their story, and so you don't need to get that. But I like to have that. It's only a few bucks a month. I negotiate with them. Okay, I don't get the New York Times cooking section, but so what? But I I get access to that so that we can look at the different, the way that they write those stories is often a tell. And I find it highly entertaining. Of course, Wall Street Journal, National Review, that's a given for me.
You have to know what the other side is doing and what they're saying.
Yeah.
In fact, our show wouldn't be possible. For example, when we talk about later on what one Democratic representative in Texas thought about the moon.
Wow.
Is there a contest sound like Kamala Harris from other Democrats now?
Maybe she's the role model.
Is that what's going on?
Maybe.
We all look up to her and we need to sound and speak like her. 866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Cold weather takes a toll on trucks. As warmer weather rolls in, it's time to assess the impact winter has had on your vehicle to help avoid downtime and keep your rig rolling through to next winter. When completing your spring maintenance check, don't overlook your windshield wipers. Extreme temperatures, snow, and ice can tear windshield wipers apart. Check on yours now to prepare for spring showers and avoid squinting through streaks. A general rule of thumb is to replace your wiper blades every 6 months. But if your inspection uncovers streaking, worn rubber, or damaged wiper frames, you may want to purchase a new set sooner.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I got to somehow figure out this week how to slip in some golf stories with the Masters.
Oh, it is Masters week.
It's Masters week.
Yeah.
Now, okay,
Masters
all right.
week. Okay.
One thing I did see. I just saw the headline. Scotty Scheffler, who is the number one golfer in the world right now. They asked him what his motivation is, and he talked about his faith yesterday. I have to tell you, I do get every time that happens in sports.
Yeah.
Knowing that the majority of even the sports writers are liberal and knowing that they hate that gives me some joy. And
I love seeing it. Yeah.
And I've realized even if I was an atheist, which I am not, but if I was, I would still enjoy watching that because I know they get angry.
Well, I love, and the younger the person is, the better the effect of that.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, well, no, you're young. You're not supposed to believe in anything yet. It's like, yeah. I love it because it shows me that there was a good foundation for that, that young person, that they likely come from a strong background. Sometimes it's a single parent raising them, and it's still a very strong background, but it's always great to see. So when is it all? Is today media day?
I guess media days, they interview different people. Today is the par 3 contest.
Oh,
where they play the short golf course.
Okay, all right.
Have a line open. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right. The official TV ratings are in.
All right.
All right.
All right, what do you got?
It's time for sports. Good afternoon, sports fans. Biff Barf on the Biff Barf Sports Spotlight, biffing up all the details and barfing them right back at you. Got a partial score here, Philadelphia 6. Okay.
All right.
George Carlin, for people that don't know.
The great George Carlin.
The great George Carlin there. That was the one that got to me. Got a partial score here, Philadelphia 6.
Yeah.
I don't know why. That just always got to me. Right. I think that was from Class. I think that was Class Clown, that album. But
yeah. Wow.
But the men's NCAA finals, 14.82 million viewers, slightly higher than last year, which was 14.69 million, which was the lowest on record for men's basketball. The women's championship game, over 18 million people watched it. First time ever the women have beaten the men in TV ratings, which only calls for one thing. It means I have to reevaluate everything that I've been thinking here and realize that as a staunch proponent of DEI, I do believe it's time, in order to equal those ratings, that biological men play against biological women.
Yeah.
Therefore, we will have diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right.
And the... Am I selling this?
As well as they do.
So I'm not.
I'm giving it just as much credibility as they get from me.
Okay.
Full on.
So equity is needed.
That's right. Yeah.
We need diversity, equity, and inclusion in basketball. So everything from now on has to be co-ed, which means it's not going to be co-ed.
No, it's not.
The women's ratings are too high. I mean,
it's not fair.
How many millions have to watch your game before you're satisfied?
It's not fair.
How greedy are you for a television audience?
It's not
women.
Fair. It's not fair.
It's not fair. And it's
It
all
isn't
about
fair.
It's not inclusive enough.
Not fair.
What a bizarre world we live in. It's like, here we are parroting the sexism and misogyny of the left, and it's viewed as the new modern inclusive feminism.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bizarre.
It's not fair.
One more other basketball note. Charles Barkley said anybody who watched the eclipse is a loser.
All right.
That's not right. We're not losers. We're not losers just because we just wanted to watch.
Sounds like Charles Barkley missed the eclipse, and instead of being sad about it, he's just going to call everybody else a loser.
People getting all upset on social media. How dare Barkley say that? I watched it, and I'm not a loser.
Look, I've lost things, so yeah, there's times when I'm a loser. I'm fine with that.
Oh, my. It's just a zoo.
It really is.
Well,
and it's always fun.
Want to continue the zoo? Well, it's middle of the week, right? I don't know why. It seems like a Friday. It's only a Wednesday.
It's funny because when I came in, it felt like a Monday night. But, yeah, all right. Oh, my mom's birthday today. Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Mom.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me see. It's the 10th. Oh, man, I forgot. Earlier this week, it was the anniversary of my first hole-in-one.
Oh. Did you go out? You didn't go out and celebrate?
No.
All right.
24 years.
Well.
24 years, yeah.
Right.
Was it Indian Creek Golf Course, Hood River, Oregon? My first hole. 215 yards. 2 football fields away the hole was.
Wow.
Yeah. 2 football fields plus 15 yards. Right in the hole.
Wow.
Saw the whole thing because it was downhill. And it hit the side. There was like this little hill. You hit that. That's what you aim for, and then it rolled down to the green and rolled all the way across the green that was on the far right-hand side and into the hole.
When did you know it was going in?
When it went in.
Not until then, huh?
No, we were all going, oh, great, good shot, and it was headed towards the hole. It was like getting closer, 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 closer. But those were in my 24 years ago. I had a very big mental problem when it came to golf, as I've always stated. I had what I considered the rage of a serial killer directed at myself because I could not hit a ball with a stick, and my whole goal was to get out there and break 80 that day, because I was out the week before and I shot like an 81, and I went to the first hole that was a par 4 and had a 12.
Yeah.
Well, that was it. I mean, I did not even appreciate my first hole in one till about 3 or 4 holes afterwards, and that's because we got to the clubhouse and the people I played with said, "You got to buy the beer."
Well,
so after a couple of beers on the back 9 that I played horribly on, I was like, "Okay, I had my hole in one, yay, yay, yay!"
yeah, that would have been crazy watching that.
And I broke 80 though a year later when I came to Texas.
Oh.
First time I broke 80 was
All right.
was here in Texas. So
Okay.
yeah, so there you go.
All right.
That was one of the last golf rounds I played in Oregon before I moved to Dallas, because that would have been April 7th.
Yeah.
And so I started here in Texas, would have been May 15th of 2000.
Yeah.
Is when I officially got here, and it's like, okay, let's go. But yeah. Great memories. Yeah, all right, so you want to so it's a crazy day. Let's play some audio.
All right.
Democratic Representative Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas talking about the moon and the sun. This thing went viral yesterday. It's like,
oh man,
is everybody trying to? Is every Democrat trying to now? I want to sound like Kamala Harris. All right, here we go.
All right,
here we go.
Provide unique light and energy, so that you have the energy of the moon at night. And sometimes you've heard the word full moon. And sometimes you need to take the opportunity just to come out and see a full moon is that complete rounded circle, which is made up mostly of gases. And that's why the question is why or how could we as humans live on the moon? Are the gases such that we could do that? The sun is a mighty powerful heat that is almost impossible to go near the sun. The moon is more manageable, and you will see in a moment, or not a moment, you'll see in a couple of years that NASA is going back to the moon.
I don't know what wins. Sonny Huston talking about earthquakes, eclipse, and climate change, or that there. We really, now, Sonny Huston is not a member of Congress.
right.
But come on, Democrats, you elect idiots.
I mean, seriously.
This is what we have said when, and you and I have talked about this a lot. As we've gotten older, we said, are we getting this smart? Or are we just not completely ignorant that you just, through osmosis, you just learn things, and if you have a bit of common sense, I have respect for the institutions of government. I don't for most of the people that work in it.
Right.
And that's why we're very blunt. We assume that these people are smart because they have a title. I always need to refer back to what my father said. People get a title and they feel they've got an infusion of brains, and they don't.
Right.
And that's why we have stated, think about this. The United States of America in the United States of America, we have a president who has no idea how anything runs, who believes he can run an entire economy. Biden and Kamala Harris believe that they can run the United States economy. Think about that. They understand what products you wish to buy and should be forced to buy. These people are idiots. I mean, I don't like the name calling, but it's so bad. When they speak, it's like you're talking to somebody in first grade.
Yeah.
They're completely and totally clueless. They have no idea how the world works. Their policies are destroying and hurting this nation. We're committing economic, energy, and national security suicide. And these people stand up there as if they're actually the intelligentsia, which know everything about how a society should work and be operated. And they're completely clueless on basic understandings of math, science, physics. They're completely and totally clueless.
Right.
They have no idea what the hell they're talking about. And we're supposed to look up to them in some way. That's a member of Congress, and you can aspire to be that someday. I'm not going to aspire to be an idiot.
These people write laws.
I know, exactly.
These people vote on laws, on bills that become law, that governs everything about our life.
And when I became a talk show host, even initially, you sit there and you say, okay, I got to interview this person. Boy, I mean, they're a congressperson, they're a senator, they're really smart, and you realize they're not.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
And you give them respect that they haven't earned.
Right.
And you give them credit where no credit is due. But the ignorance, and this is, I think, it gets to both you and I. Complete ignorance, but an arrogance to promote that ignorance.
Yeah.
That's the thing that you just shake your head at going, wow, they're completely clueless how the world works, but they have this arrogance and this confidence that to promote their ignorance, and you just wonder, is there any self-awareness at all? Do they actually realize that people don't buy it?
Right.
That they sound like idiots? Do they actually realize it themselves?
Yeah.
Do they go home at night going, God, I'm an idiot?
Right. I don't think so. What you heard is confidence. She was confident in whatever that was.
What I liked was, it's almost impossible to get near the sun.
Almost.
Are we talking people or or some type of machinery that can handle heat a little bit better as you get closer than a human being? I mean, I wasn't sure where she was going there, though.
My gosh. Almost impossible.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Coming up here on the show, we've got a ton of things. New polling. We had just mentioned this week or late last week. The fact of, the whole thing about, Biden wanting to raise taxes more on the rich. And we said, okay, we hear the fair share. What's a fair share? We've often talked about that in our entire talk radio careers. No one ever, not on the left, not in the Democratic Party, no politician that I've ever talked to, no Democrat that I've ever talked to can tell you what a fair share is.
Right.
They don't know what a fair share is. And we said that the polls have showed that Americans have no idea what the rich actually pay in taxes. New poll out what Americans think. Way off.
Yeah.
Americans have no clue who pays the taxes, even though it comes out in Wall Street Journal wrote an editorial on it, and they said Republicans need to keep pounding this over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Because it's something that you and I have been paying attention to for years, who pays taxes. It's almost every year when it comes out, we bring it up on the show.
Right.
But the left is completely clueless on it. They have no idea what the rich pay.
No, they are. And they just buy whatever people are selling.
I'll give you an example, just a tease for this story coming up on the top of the hour. Over 33% of Democrats believe that the top 1% pay 1% of the taxes. That is so far off, it's not even funny.
Yeah. I mean, light years away from reality.
Yeah, completely.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. It is out, the new polls on taxes. All right.
Okay.
Now, as we know, in 2020, the top 1% paid 42% of taxes. I think it's gone up in the last couple of years. It's actually gone up more. But Wall Street Journal talks about America's secret progressive income tax. A third of Democrats think the top 1% only pay 1% of income taxes. The question was, to the best of your knowledge.
Yeah.
As the new poll.
Operative word is best.
To the best of your knowledge, how much do you think the top 1% of taxpayers by income account for in terms of share of total federal income taxes paid? 1%, 12%, 42%, or 64%? The correct answer as of 2020 is 42%. But less than a quarter of those surveyed guessed it right. 22% thought the top 1% of taxpayers paid only 1% of income taxes, including more than a third of Democrats who thought the top 1% of taxpayers paid only 1% of income taxes. They pay 42 times more than over a third of Democrats believe. Wildly off mark. 25% suggested it was 12%.
Okay.
So you've got over 50% of Americans and way over 50% of Democrats that are way off. They have no idea how much the rich actually pay in taxes. 19% said, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It goes, as a communication strategy, Republicans could apparently do worse than simply repeat the official IRS data over and over again. The survey, sponsored by the Tax Foundation, was conducted by Public Policy Polling. A plurality of respondents, 40%, liked the idea of increasing the child tax credit, but 25% also said they thought a tax credit and a tax deduction are the same thing.
Oh.
Another 20% incorrectly believed that a deduction is more valuable than a credit.
Okay.
19% said they don't know. Do people do their taxes?
I was going to ask the question. Are these people doing their taxes? Or I guess maybe not. Maybe they're hiring somebody to do their taxes. Or are they even filing? Wow.
Wow. they said, let me see, 54% of those surveyed said they'd shift the tax burden by having high earners pay more, which suggests that the left's fair share mantra has sunk in.
Yeah.
Has sunk in, excuse me, not suck in.
Yeah, well, there's a Freudian slip.
Oh, my God. Get me a beer out of the refrigerator. Oh, my God. That may be one of the finest mistakes I've ever made.
Yeah.
Which suggests that the left's fair share mantra has sunk in.
Right.
But then this question comes up. What do you think would be the fair top tax rate on income?
Ooh.
Okay. Asking the taxpayer, what should the top rate be?
Okay.
71% chose a figure of 30% or less. Only 5% said they want a top tax of 40%. Only 8% opted for higher. As a reminder, the current federal income tax that Americans pay today has a top marginal rate of 37%. Add state and local income taxes, and the top marginal rate hits 50.3% in California and 51.8% in New York City. Americans are completely clueless as to who pays taxes.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yep. Well,
The vast majority are clueless.
Well, as long as it's not me, right? As long as I can point to somebody else saying, hey, they need to pay more, it doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong. And that type of public sentiment, affects all of us. You may think it's not going to come back at you, but it will, because politically, when they start moving on such things, then they get into the ludicrous behavior of putting on a surcharge for your energy bill. And is that only for billionaires? No. It starts at 25 grand a year in California, which you practically are homeless if you're only earning 25. What do you got, a paper route? California, 25 grand? That won't get you a place on the sidewalk. My gosh.
And the problem with when you see stuff like this is we've talked about how talk radio has changed.
Yeah.
You really don't argue with people anymore because they have, I think the rich should pay their fair share. Well, what do you think the rich top 1% pays? Oh, 1%.
1%.
Well, they actually pay 42%. Well, that's what you think.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
that's your opinion.
It's your opinion. No, it's not in my opinion. That's IRS tax numbers.
Or they accuse you of getting data from where are you getting your data? The rich people?
Right.
I mean, it's with some people, there's no win. It's like, okay, the conversation has ended because this was never going to be a
I'm sure you got it from Fox.
Yeah. Faux news. Haven't heard that in a while.
And but you think about it, vast majority of Democrats believe that the top 1% either pay 1% or 12%.
And by the way, Fox News gets their good stuff from us. Let's be clear.
Oh, that's true. I mean, we're the groundbreakers.
That's right.
You know why we're the groundbreakers? Because we're the first ones on the air.
We're on the air first. Nobody's on before us. That may be untrue, but we're going to keep saying it. It may be completely false, but we don't care.
We come on at almost 6 after the hour. Somebody may come on at 4 after the
That's
hour.
what I'm saying. That's the first thing that thought of was, oh crap, we start at 6 after. We get a 6-minute break before the show even starts.
But doesn't this go back to what we have said? We really don't debate the issues anymore.
No.
We simply are fact checkers.
Did you know it's almost impossible to fly to the sun? And the top 1% only pay 1%?
Well, I'm wondering if the gases on the moon will allow me to live there.
No.
The gases on the moon.
And neither will the what were they calling them? The razor thin surfboard alien craft. South Korea's is orbiting the moon with these aircraft, and when they're flying, they look like the still pictures look like they're razor thin little surfboards. And South Korea's been doing this, I don't know, I think since 22. And then everybody's freaking out. What's that? What's that? What's that?
I want to go to Sheila Jackson Lee and say, it's a vacuum up there. Oh, yeah, because there's plenty of dust to vacuum.
That's right. It should be a vacuum. Moon dust. Vacuum. Hello? You don't even have to use more words. You just throw out points.
Somebody posted
bullet points.
Somebody posted on social media
oh my gosh.
after Sheila Jackson Lee's comment on the moon and the sun.
Yeah.
And they talked about Representative Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, what was it? What was going to tip over again?
Guam.
Yeah. Would tip over. It's like Representative Johnson said today that if there's too many people on the moon, it will fall out of the sky. Then again, as we state, when the Democrats promote that a biological man can be a biological woman because they say so, then they can be ignorant on every other issue.
Well, okay, then there's this story.
Oh, no, another one. Okay, all right. It's the middle of the week. Maybe if this gets too bad, I would just make the rest of the week off.
This is who we are.
Okay.
We have the ability to learn. We just don't. Here it is from USA Today. Why do my eyes hurt? Searches about eye injuries see a massive spike amid solar eclipse. Yeah, apparently, Google searches reports that there was a huge spike in the "Why do my eyes hurt?" and "My eyes hurt" in the search engine. But, Mama, that's where the fun is. Oh, my gosh. Seriously.
Hey, man, let's get high and watch the eclipse.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Oh, man, I thought I had my glasses on.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Hey, man, don't look up, man. Put your glasses on, man. I mean, seriously. Why do my eyes hurt? Yeah. That's how she keeps winning elections.
Sheila Jackson Lee?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's complete. I mean, just complete ignorance. I mean, I think the thing that you look at is when you search for information for a living, and I know wherever I go, somebody will always comment. He's always on his phone. It's because I have books on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I do all my research on my phone. But you and I know it has never been easier to find out the truth like that on the internet.
Yeah. Right.
And any question,
simple facts.
Any question you have, probably 99% of them, you can get answered in 30 seconds.
Right. And we've always said, look, you don't have to trust any given source. The great thing about the interwebs is that you can find multiple sources on one topic and find the numbers that, because often, and here's the thing, people know how to look things up, right?
I don't know. Maybe they don't.
Well, ask them, Hey, where should we go eat? Boom. They've got the Yelp rundown for every restaurant within 10 square miles.
What's the closest pot shop to the house?
Boom. They can tell you. Hey, man, it's 0.64 miles, man.
I'm new here. I'm completely lost. Where's the liquor store?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have the ability. We just choose not to. It really is. This goes back to Joey Pants and The Matrix. Look, I know I'm not eating steak, but to me, feels like steak, smells like steak, tastes like steak. I'm eating steak. I just live in the abyss. Why deal with reality? Why deal with facts?
Maybe suck was the right word.
No, seriously.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Managing time is key. Successful owner-operators know that simply running hard is not enough. If it were that easy, anyone could do the job and expect the profits to roll in. It generally pays to slow down. There is a trade-off in higher costs, not to mention the increased risk for driving fast. If driving slower takes time away from you, you could find some of the ways to get it back. Never take time off during the last 2 weeks of the quarter or the last week of the month, when freight typically is abundant. Sometimes it works to your advantage to look for loads that take you through home rather than to home. The latter can interrupt your revenue stream and require additional time to get back up to full speed again. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, yeah, I mean, it's important to read these things here to show the polling, because we have debates, and when we have debates, we're arguing, we're debating the truth versus fantasy.
Right.
And you can't have a debate when you don't agree on what the argument is about.
Well, here's the thing. Do these people who are clueless, do they even understand that Election Day is November 7th?
No, look, you're joking, but it's a great point when they don't even know when they scream. And like I've said, the reason it's so important is because I do think the tax thing relates to the audio from Sheila Jackson Lee showing she's completely clueless.
Yeah.
She has no idea about the moon and the sun. I mean, it's like, she's just babbling.
Right.
That's something that is something that's basic to science. I mean, I knew, and I believe she's my age or older, and we all knew that it's a vacuum when you get to space, and it's a vacuum. There's no atmosphere on the moon. We all know that.
Yeah.
And the fact that she didn't know that is pretty amazing for anybody who grew up, especially in the space age when we did.
Yeah, no, that's the best point, is that the entire world was watching. When you talk about the moon landing, it wasn't just a U.S. thing. The entire world was everybody was watching. If you grew up in that time and you were, if you were a kid, you were learning everything very quickly. There was a learning curve, but people learned about how it all worked.
I remember, especially during the space program in the 60s, I mean, Jules Bergman, I mean, you paid attention. They would teach you, here's what's going on here, and here's why this is such a problem here when they, I can still remember, Gemini and the spacewalks and what they're going to go under, or the early, Mercury.
That blows my mind.
Flights, and even they didn't give you the full seriousness of that situation.
Right.
For me, it's when I read Gene Kranz's book, "Failure is Not an Option."
Right.
That really came from the movie.
Yeah.
But when he talked about they were flying on the seat of their pants. They would never, have a space program with the lack of precautions that they took back then, because they needed to beat the Soviets.
Yeah.
And they looking back, they admit it.
Yeah. Wow.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I just want to read a few paragraphs here. Wall Street Journal lead editorial: the FISA surveillance compromise worth passing. A FISA surveillance compromise worth passing is what they're stating.
Mm-hmm.
Their point of view is we need to pass this. Sensible reforms to Section 702 can protect Americans from ISIS and FBI abuses. Congress is trying to reauthorize the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act this week, and doing it right is crucial for national security. The House Intelligence and Judiciary Committees have worked out a sensible compromise that can protect Americans from foreign jihadists as well as domestic abuses of power. The risk is that they'll muck it up with damaging amendments. The debate concerns FISA Section 702 that lets the government monitor the communications of foreigners overseas. The information is stored in a database and can be searched by U.S. intelligence officials for names or keywords. This is a vital anti-terror tool, though U.S. persons contacted from abroad are sometimes caught in the data searches. The concern is that the FBI officials have on occasion abused their access to search for American names that are not plausibly linked to terrorism. The Reforming Intelligence and Securing American Act, championed by Intelligence Chairman Mike Turner, imposes new guardrails as well as criminal penalties for abuse. But it also preserves ability to surveil and act with dispatch without introducing onerous bureaucratic barriers. The bill requires FBI personnel to get prior approval from a supervisor or staff attorney before running a U.S. person query. It would prevent political appointees from approving FBI database queries, and it would require audits of U.S. person queries to be run within 180 days after it was initiated. The bill would also require all FBI personnel to receive annual training on the procedures, a backstop against casual abuses in FBI field offices with little supervision. Sensitive queries like those involving elected officials and political and media organizations need approval from the deputy director of the FBI. House Judiciary leaders don't think this is enough, however, and Chairman Jim Jordan and Democrat Gerald Nadler will offer an amendment to require a warrant for every search of a 702 database for U.S. persons. This would introduce needless delay when time can be of the essence. The warrant requirement would recognize exception for security emergencies, but how will intelligence agents know in advance which suspicious clusters of information could provide keys to preventing an imminent terrorist attack? Running searches only on foreign names has the potential of misinformation leading to terror cells in the U.S. A warrant also isn't a guarantee against abuse, after we learned in the case of former Donald Trump advisor Carter Page, who was wiretapped after the FBI lied to obtain a warrant from the FISA court. The better protection is a bill stronger query oversight and stiff penalty for abusers. The consensus legislation includes willful disclosure of classified information from a U.S. person queries a criminal offense punishable by up to 8 years in prison. Unauthorized surveillance of a U.S. person would be punished by up to 10 years in jail, a $250,000 fine, or both. As for the FISA court, the bill would enhance penalties for those who lie or provide false information, as in the case of Mr. Page. The FISA court could hold people in contempt and punish violations, including involving a U.S. person, up to $10,000. The provisions should close the loopholes that allowed all but one FBI official to escape punishment on the 2016 lies to the FISA court about Russia collusion. That allowed all but one FBI official to escape punishment. Kleinsworth didn't get any type of serious punishment at all. That's who they're talking about. And he lied. He committed fraud on the form.
Right.
Because he talked about Carter Page, that basically was a foreign agent when he was an agent for the United States.
Right.
He completely reversed it. They lied to get the FISA warrant.
Yep.
Did he do any serious jail time?
No.
No.
No, slap on the wrist.
Yeah, firing, isn't it? If you don't put somebody in jail for 10 years for committing an act of fraud for a FISA warrant, which is a secret warrant, then we really don't give a damn about the rights of Americans.
Deliberately going out of his way to falsify a document in order to obtain that warrant. I mean, it doesn't get when you break it down to what we accept, what we don't accept, and you don't have to watch many crime TV shows to know how sensitive the information is in terms of trying to obtain a warrant outside of the FISA courts. Now, when you're dealing with FISA courts, there should be a much greater standard, and that standard should come with harsh punishment for those who abuse that standard.
Well,
and we didn't see that at all. But you know what? It gets down to, the attitude, because in order for that to happen, for him to get a slap on the wrist, there has to be little to no outrage that had happened, and there was little to no outrage that had happened within the system.
Well, and even further than that, we see it right now. What is lawfare going against Trump for bogus charges depending on? Not just rogue judges or rogue prosecutors, but now rogue juries.
Yeah, right.
This case, for example, Bragg, well, he'll probably get a prosecution, even though it's bogus, because the juries in New York City, the liberal juries they'll get, will just, if it's Trump, they'll just convict him no matter what.
Right.
If nobody on the other side cares about constitutional rights, if they don't care about it, then you're not going to solve the problem.
Well,
it doesn't matter if it's life in prison.
Right.
If they had it in this bill, if it's life in prison, if the jury sits there and says, well, it's Trump or it's a Republican, so we're not going to find him guilty. There's bigger problems that we have. They're trying to destroy democracy. If the court system itself doesn't mean anything to Democrats on juries anymore, then it doesn't matter if you have the electric chair for the punishment for doing these wrong things when it comes to surveillance. You saw all those intelligence officials. They knew they were lying about the Hunter Biden laptop.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't care.
No.
They didn't care if they were political.
Nope.
And so that's the problem that you have. And that's coming from someone who believes that this surveillance is actually needed to keep us safe, but you can't trust the people that are responsible for doing the right thing. We talked about, look, we live in a country. We started out the show with the Deputy Treasury Secretary talking about the fact that every single dollar that Iran gets, this is the Biden administration who is denying, oh, no, this all money is going to charities, and we're making sure that it's going to charities and everything else. And Iran is not using any of this money to do anything nefarious whatsoever because the system won't allow it. And the assistant deputy for the Deputy Secretary of State comes on yesterday and says, no.
Treasury Secretary. Yeah.
What'd I say?
Of State. Yeah. Treasury Secretary, not Secretary of State. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I'm getting this. It ticks me off so much here that. But yeah, the Deputy Treasury Secretary came out yesterday and said, no, every single dollar they get, every single dollar. The fungible thing doesn't matter here because they're not trying to hide any money. They just take it and boom, it goes straight. It goes straight to violent purposes, which is the proxies.
Right.
And so you have a president of the United States that will actually enable the enemy and finance the enemy, reverse the policy to finance the enemy that's attacking U.S. interests that have gotten American soldiers killed.
You know, going back to the Lois Lerner thing and the Tea Party and all of that, and we pointed out then, and we have for years, how it's a similar mindset. If there is that similar mindset, in this case, you know, the lawfare going on against Trump, I don't know how. I mean, that's about as deep as it gets because it's on every level. It's on every single level. And that mindset doesn't need, it's a similar mindset doesn't need a conspiracy. They don't need to all be working together. They know the plan. It's already in play. They know what to do. You go after Trump at every turn. Well, if that mindset is there, then tell me what political enemy, large or small, they wouldn't go after. Tell me who that would be. Tell me who would be exempt. Parents going to a school board meeting? Nope. You're not exempt. We'll take down your license plate. These are the things going on right now. This similar mindset. Someone wrote the story, and it was in the last months of Obama being in office. And they said the number of non-appointed hires into the system under Obama, these people that will be embedded in the system for a long time, and how radical they are politically and everything else. And it would take years, decades to find them all and weed them all out and all of this. And I thought to myself, I thought this then, and you and I have been saying it. Well, it's a similar mindset. You know, it's how people think, and it's not this grand conspiracy, because the article kind of made it seem like, well, we're seeking out these people. Well, maybe that happened to some extent, but you don't need to do that because the mindset exists in far too many people already at different levels of power. And Trump wins, Trump loses, doesn't matter. The next political enemy is the target. Big or small, local, federal, it doesn't matter. And this is who they are. So when you get into now the discussion on what's to be done with FISA, what's to be done in the intel field, and how do you monitor all that? How do you possibly monitor all that when you have a system that is designed to be covert and people know that operating within that system and they have a political agenda? I mean, we've seen it how many times play out now, well, and no one has really been punished for it.
And especially when they know, though, or they believe that it doesn't matter what the punishment is. No, you do it in Washington, D.C., whatever, you're going to be fine.
Right.
Because if you're a Democrat, or if you do it in other places too, you have prosecutors and judges that don't care about the law.
They don't care.
And then you have juries that don't care about the law.
They don't care.
We say we're what makes a system, we're a system of laws, not men. No, not anymore. You can see it. You can see it moving right now, and they're doing it with no shame.
Laws be damned.
At all. Laws be damned. So you can write all the laws you want. If the judges, the prosecutors, and the juries don't care about the law, then it doesn't matter. And that's the problem that you have on something, the surveillance that you actually need. But the reason this question is here is because we know that those in power on the left don't give a damn about the law.
Nope.
That's the problem.
We want the end result, and it doesn't matter what it takes.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I was just erasing stuff on my phone, and I came up with I just happened to pass by. I think we mentioned it here in the last month, but my favorite meme from the last month is the one that shows all these people holding, like, ID. And it says, "Don't let Trump cheat. Demand voter ID and paper ballots."
Yeah. Kind of a reverse psychology.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
That's one of
Well,
the best.
we kind of, it's funny because it makes it in a much better way, but we've made that point over and over again when we talked about election cycles. We said, well, wait a minute. If you are against someone like Trump, you want to eliminate all this. You want to, again, go back to the very basics of our election system and process.
Right.
With checks and balances in places to make sure that everyone who is voting is that person and that they are legal to vote. I mean, it's very simple. You should want that for your side. Oh, unless you think your side can't win.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here this morning. One of the things that we had played earlier on the show, and probably played again this week again, because I think it's a huge story, is when you had the Assistant Deputy Treasury Secretary come out yesterday and say, no, every single dollar that goes to Iran, every single dollar goes to fund violent activities, which is, goes to the Revolutionary Guard and then goes to the proxies and everything else, that no money goes. The money goes to, in fact, he was talking about the fact that this isn't even a fungible argument.
Right.
It's just going straight to the violent activities that Iran supports, including the proxies, which, again, as we have stated before, we already knew that. And it was said, and the fungible argument was always being done, and the White House was saying it wasn't happening. Well, the testimony from the Assistant Deputy Secretary yesterday in the Treasury Department, 180 degrees different than what you get from the White House. Mm-hmm. So somebody's lying. Either the Deputy Secretary of State is lying or the White House is lying.
Mm-hmm. Secretary of Treasury. Mm-hmm.
What did I say, Secretary of State again? Yes.
Now, the Deputy Secretary of State may be lying. We just don't know what that would be about. But we have no.
Treasury Deputy Secretary.
Yes.
And so the other thing you hear is that somehow Israel's fighting an immoral war, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And the genocide. You had the protesters at the hearing yesterday. For the defense secretary. Did I get that right? Austin, who was actually there. He actually showed up and
actually went to work.
Yeah. Went
okay.
To work.
All right.
That's just a little sarcasm there. The and that they had again screaming genocide, genocide, genocide.
Mm-hmm.
You saw in Michigan the other day, you just see that Whitmer and there was a story that they've been very silent on the Death to America chants.
Yeah.
What was that story going back a few years ago where somebody was saying, well, it was somebody on the left. Well, when they say death to America, they don't really mean death to America.
Yeah, when Iranian leadership was doing it. They don't really mean death to America.
Oh, that was it. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right. That was it.
Yeah.
That's where it came from. Okay.
Yeah, they don't really mean death to America.
What?
Okay.
So they're saying long, healthy life?
Yeah.
I mean, what?
I know that the left is good at changing the definition of words, so somebody fill me in. What does it mean? What does it mean when they say it in Michigan?
And so the scream that Israel is committing genocide, you now hear even coming from Democrats. So here's a questioning between Tom Cotton and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin about what is going on in Gaza.
Right. Secretary Austin, thank you for acknowledging in response to Senator Wicker that Hamas committed war crimes on October 7th and has been committing them every day since by using human shields. I want to address what the protesters raised earlier. Is Israel committing genocide in Gaza?
Senator Cotton, we don't have any evidence of genocide being created.
So that's a no. Israel's not committing genocide in Gaza.
We don't have evidence of that, to
Thank
my
you.
knowledge. Yeah.
Better than Director Burns and Director Haynes did last month at the Intelligence Committee when they dodged that question. You stand accused by those protesters of greenlighting genocide. Would you like to respond to that accusation?
What I would say, Senator Cotton, from the very beginning is that we committed to help assist Israel in defending its territory and its people by providing security assistance. And I would remind everybody that, what happened on October 7th was absolutely horrible. Numbers of Israeli citizens killed, and then a couple of hundred Israeli citizens taken hostage.
American citizens as well.
American citizens as well.
So you deny the accusation that you greenlit genocide?
I absolutely deny.
Okay. For the record, I don't think Israel's committing genocide. I don't believe you greenlit genocide either. You talked a lot with Senator Reid about Israel's responsibility to provide aid in Gaza. Why does Israel have a responsibility to provide aid to Gaza? Israel was the victim of an unprovoked, vicious attack on October 7th. Why should they provide aid to the aggressor nation? Or aggressor, Gaza's not a nation, to the aggressors on October 7th. We didn't provide aid to Germany and Japan during World War II.
What we did provide aid to and assistance to many of the countries that we've operated in recently.
But not in World War II. If you had been in George Marshall's or Dwight Eisenhower's position in World War II, would you have wanted to provide aid to Germany?
I really do believe, Senator, that if they want to create a lasting effect in terms of stability, then I think that something needs to be done to account to help the Palestinian people.
I get that, but they're in the middle of the war. Like we believe that too after World War II. That's why we had the Marshall Plan. That's why we rebuilt Japan. But that was after the war was won, not in the middle of it. And in the meantime, like if it's not Israel's responsibility to provide aid, it's certainly not our responsibility, but we're spending our tax dollars to build this giant pier to send aid into Gaza. Who's going to accept that aid? Who's going to be at the end of the pier on the shore taking aid from American forces?
That's still being worked out, but there will be.
Okay, I'm done at that point.
Yeah, right.
We don't know who's going to receive the
Still
aid.
being worked out.
We do.
Hamas will be doing. They control the entire territory.
Exactly.
They control everything. You're going to be handing it to Hamas.
Yep.
We know that.
The fact that he couldn't answer that question.
Right.
Well, of course, before we went in this, we know what the line, what the chain, what the supply chain is going to be.
Right.
And it's going to go from here to here to here to here, and that's how we. How old is this proposal? Was that the State of the Union address he did that in?
It was right at that time.
Right
Yeah.
around that time. So it's
Yeah.
been a month.
Yeah. Yeah, you know the plan. It's already that's already been worked out.
Right.
You know how this is going to go down. You're going to hand it to Hamas.
We don't know who our aid's going to go to. The Secretary of Defense doesn't know. We do.
Because there's no other answer.
Right.
If he tried to say, well, we're going to have humanitarian workers there, and who do they work for?
Yeah.
The UN? No. No. Hamas? Yes. Still being worked out. No, it's not being worked out. You know darn well who it's going to. It's direct aid to Hamas. And they still have our people.
Yep.
And nothing is being done about it.
It's amazing.
And nothing will be done about it.
And as you know, I mean, he came out and said, well, no, there's no, because there is no evidence of any genocide going on.
Right.
But Democrats are now, as you see, even the White House, furious
Yeah.
with the military action. Why?
Why?
They're not committing genocide.
Right.
When you talk about the accidental killing of the aid workers and Biden being furious, Biden dodged when he ordered civilians to be killed.
Right. In Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And still hasn't answered for it.
Nope. Hasn't answered for it. Nobody's been punished for it. Nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
So he sets a standard for Israel that we would never set for the United States ever.
He doesn't abide by it. Yeah.
Why? Because the people screaming death to America and lying about what's going on over there, he wants their support.
Yep.
Biden wants the pro-terrorist support.
He's got to win, man. He's got to win.
You see the poll. Half of Muslims in the United States take the pro-terrorist side.
Wow.
That poll came out yesterday.
Wow. Well,
and that's what
which
we're dealing
means it politically, if you're the Biden campaign, if you're the Biden administration, politically, especially in those concentrated areas, large Muslim populations here in the U.S., you're going to have to appease that voter base. I don't even know how they're going to pull off the entire convention thing. I don't know how that's going to work. They're already calling, the extremists are already calling for it to not happen in Chicago. Where does it go? You can't take it anywhere where the extremists won't go. They're going to call you out at every turn. I don't know how you have a convention.
You know, it's screwed up. Just thought about it. You know, the whole story about Ohio and now Alabama. Biden might not have those states.
Yeah.
You know, that I mean, he's not going to win Alabama, but you know, in Ohio, those states he might not even be on the ballot in either of those states.
Well, it's, you know, right now there's this tide is working in favor of Trump. It's working in his favor because reality is working against Biden. The reality that he brought.
I just want to get back to this. So that thought just popped into my mind. Representative Talib and Governor Gretchen Whitmer remained silent after protesters in Dearborn, Michigan, who shouted death to America and death to Israel during a rally that was condemned by the White House and the local leaders. Well, now that's a tough one because the White House was asked directly and they condemned it. And it's like, well, we condemn it, yet we have to give them hope that we believe Israel's fighting an immoral war. Why is Israel committing genocide? Well, no, they're not committing genocide, but what they're doing is immoral. What's immoral? We really don't know, but we have to say they're immoral because we hope to get the death to America vote.
Well, I said he's not going to win with these radicals until he's actually attacking Israel, which isn't going to happen. But even if he did that, they would come back and say, yeah, but it was too late. I mean, you're not going to win, is the point. You're not going to appease the radicals. Yet more and more, every day, they control their party.
Yep. I'm trying to see how they justify or define what death to America means.
Right.
Well, we don't mean literally.
Yeah.
What do you mean then?
Right. Please tell me.
Well, we just believe, you questioning us on that is hate speech.
Exactly. How dare you?
Because if you, we've heard this argument before, if you don't agree that they should be saying death to America, well, then they might commit suicide, and then that death is on you.
Yeah.
Is that going to be the next excuse that they give?
Instead of silence is violence. Logic is violence. It's, again, radicals,
right.
Line, on the other side of that line, everybody else.
Oh.
And you have to decide who you stand with.
I'm happy that the protesters did that.
Oh, yeah.
And you're saying, Gary,
Sure.
why would you be happy? I was yelling death to America. Because they're not hiding it.
Oh, no.
We know what they think.
Yep.
And Talib and Whitmer being silent on it also says a ton.
Right. How you don't come out immediately and condemn that?
Yep.
Because politically you can't, can you?
Because we have a clear understanding where they stand.
You're gonna sell your soul and your country.
Just amazing.
I can't imagine how you even sleep at night.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Okay, so the House is not going to walk over the impeachment papers for Mayorkas till next week.
Right. Yeah. Tap the brakes on it. Speaker Johnson responding basically to Senate GOP requests that, look, hold off until the beginning of next week. Mike Lee was making the point that, all right, it would be better at the beginning of a legislative week than toward the end of a legislative week. In other words, you have a couple of more days to basically play this out in the media. You made the point, too, and I think it's a good point, is that you kind of keep it alive longer because if the thought is, and it pretty much is, that Schumer, as Senate Majority Leader, will just, take this thing and boom, fast track it and to nothingness. However he does that. And then it's gone within a few days. It's over. And I think maybe that was the Senate GOP's concern. Look, you get it over here Wednesday, Thursday morning, the Schumer does nothing. He acts on Thursday night. And then on Friday, tables it or whatever he's going to do. And then on the weekend, it's buried. And by Monday, it's gone all
Well, actually, they're out of town by Thursday.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Then
Thursday
is the last legislative day this week?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, so even worse, you've got it now in the void of the, and Friday's a horrible news day. If you're trying to get something buried, put it out there mid-morning Friday, and it's not going to go anywhere. And then all of a sudden, you come back Monday, and you got nothing, And so, look, it keeps it alive a few more days. We'll see.
Well,
it's not going to go anywhere. There's not going to be a real trial situation of Mayorkas, and he's not going to be removed by the Senate.
Right, and here's what the Republicans want. I mean, I don't believe they ever thought that they're going to get him impeached. What they want is they want to publicize it. They do want to get some of the evidence out there. In fact, we'll play Ted Cruz talking about it. And this is where, you sit there and they go, there's no impeachable offense. Well, the one that is the most solid is, number one, is the fact that he lied before Congress when he said the border's secure.
Right.
And so you have him there. And it's like, well, secure can mean a variety of different things. Most Americans, though, politically will hear that again over and over again and say, yeah, he's right because that's ridiculous. That was a lie. Yeah. So even if they don't get the impeachment, what they want those no votes from the Senate.
Right.
And they're going to need, they want those votes from the Senate, and they want those 51, senators all voting against it.
Mm-hmm.
And impeachment, so they have them on record for the election. This is all about November.
Yep.
And I'm not saying they don't have a point, because what's happening at the border, as we know, is premeditated, calculated.
Mm-hmm.
The United States government under the Biden administration wishes to create chaos at the border and in every major city in America.
Yep.
Because that's what they've done.
Yep.
I saw that Biden was talking to Univision and, well, I'm still trying to find out if I can shut the whole border down with just an executive order from myself, but, the courts, and it's like, shut up.
Yeah.
He wants it both ways, which brings me back to Democrats in general. How come Democrats can't tell you the truth about what they're actually doing?
They should just say, we want an open border.
Right.
We like it the way it is.
Why do they constantly lie?
Now, it's hard to be the mayor of major blue cities. Hard to be a blue mayor and tell your constituents, no, everything's fine. We want it this way. That's the problem they're running into now. New York City, Chicago, and other major cities now that have become border towns.
Bringing on the chaos. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. One of the best sports headlines from the Babylon Bee, because we're not that far away. NFL referees are preparing for the next season by staring at the eclipse.
I love it.
And the other one I love, the other sports update, Caitlin Clark to retire from Spotlight and enter WNBA.
A quiet life.
And after we had talked about The View earlier this week, and the discussion on is the eclipse because of climate change, NASA sends rover to search for intelligent life on The View.
Yeah. Wow. Good luck.
Great stuff.
Yeah. I love it.
All right, here we go. We were talking about the impeachment of Mayorkas. Here is the Senate, and this is Ted Cruz leading it off yesterday about the impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas.
We are witnessing a profound threat to our nation at the southern border. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and this entire administration has deliberately and willfully facilitated the criminal invasion of this country.
Okay. Democrats, is that true or false? When Democrats hear that, how do they respond? It's true.
Yeah, how do you defend Joe Biden?
Yeah, I just said I'd play that quick. I just said, okay, let's ask Democrats that question. Is that true? Or is the border secure, as Mayorkas said for the longest time?
Yeah.
Let's continue. Here we go.
It is a humanitarian crisis. It is a public safety crisis. It is a national security crisis. When Alejandro Mayorkas last testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee, I asked him how many migrants died last year crossing into this country. He said, I don't know. Of course he didn't. The number's 853, but this administration doesn't care about the body bags that their open borders are producing. When Joe Biden stood before Congress and gave the State of the Union address, he had planned in his remarks not to say a word about Laken Riley, the beautiful 22-year-old woman, the nursing student in Georgia, murdered by an illegal alien Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas released into this country. When Biden gave his State of the Union address, he didn't mention the name Jeremy Caceres, the 2-year-old little boy murdered just miles away from here in Prince George's County, again by an illegal alien, that Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas released into this country. He also didn't mention the Haitian illegal immigrant that Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas flew from Haiti to America, released, who then violently raped a 15-year-old girl in Boston, Massachusetts, who was severely disabled. What we are witnessing is evil. It is wrong. That is why the House of Representatives impeached Alejandro Mayorkas, because he has aided and abetted the criminal invasion of this United States. And yet Chuck Schumer and the Democrats don't want to talk about it. Even worse, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats want to defy their constitutional responsibility. 21 times in our nation's history, the House of Representatives has sent articles of impeachment over to the Senate. 21 times. Alejandro Mayorkas is only the second cabinet member ever to be impeached. The last time a cabinet member was impeached was 1876, 148 years ago. What Mayorkas has done is extraordinary, and its consequences are profound. Under the Constitution, the responsibilities of the Senate are simple and straightforward. They are to try this impeachment. Chuck Schumer doesn't want to do that. Instead, he wants to move to table the entire thing, and there are 3 reasons Chuck Schumer wants to move to table the articles of impeachment. Reason number 1, he does not want to allow the House managers to present the evidence of Alejandro Mayorkas and this administration's willful decision to aid and abet this criminal invasion of this country. The second reason Schumer wants to table the articles of impeachment is he does not want a trial. He does not want the American people to see the facts. When each of us lay out the facts of what's going on, no Democrat argues there's not another side. They don't defend it and say, no, it's great. Don't worry about the people who are dying. Don't worry about the children being raped. Don't worry about the Mexican drug cartels making billions of dollars. The Democrats have no response. Their response is they count on the media not to report it. That's their entire strategy. And the third reason Schumer wants to table these articles of impeachment is he does not want Senate Democrats, particularly those on the ballot in November, to vote guilty or not guilty, because it is indisputable Alejandro Mayorkas is guilty. And he's not just guilty of aiding and abetting the invasion that has happened for the last 3.5 years and every dead body that has resulted, but he's guilty tomorrow and the next day and the next day. He intends to continue facilitating and accelerating this criminal invasion. Of the 21 times the House has voted out articles of impeachment and sent them to the Senate, in 4 of them, the Senate either lacked jurisdiction because the individual was a senator and not an executive branch officer or a judicial officer, or the person impeached was out of office and the case was mooted. In every single case where the individual impeached was still in office, in all 17, the Senate conducted a trial and adjudicated and came to a decision, guilty or not guilty. In 2013, Harry Reid nuked the filibuster. That did enormous damage to the institution of the United States Senate. In 2024, Chuck Schumer intends to nuke the impeachment clause of the United States Constitution. And make no mistake, if this precedent is set, it will not be the last time it is used. If and when Donald Trump wins in November, if, God forbid, Democrats have the House, they'll impeach him again. And probably again and again and again. And what Chuck Schumer is deciding is the Senate no longer has to try impeachments, but instead can hide behind procedural games. Anyone who cares about the security of this country should oppose what Schumer is doing and vote to convict Alejandro Mayorkas, and anyone that cares about the United States Senate and about the United States Constitution should demand that a trial be conducted. The American people deserve a trial, and I would encourage everyone in the media, ask yourself, why is Chuck Schumer so terrified to have a trial on what's happening on our southern border?
There you go, Ted Cruz yesterday. Strong arguments that, as he said, the Democrats can't win.
Yep.
The Democrats don't have a defense as to what's going on at the border.
Nope.
And if you hold a trial coming out and saying comprehensive immigration reform is, no, you close the border. And Americans understand that now. They're not winning that argument. You know, they tried, remember when it first ramped up, they tried to blame Trump for the border, and the public didn't buy it.
Yeah.
The public's never bought it.
Right, the guy that wanted to build a wall, it's his fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the public knows what's going on here, and that's why Democrats are terrified. Democrats are terrified because it's all the solid points that will make America again say, why are Democrats doing this? Why is this administration doing this? Will damage the president and other Democrats for the November election.
Well, this is what Schumer sees. He sees what you pointed out, the public sentiment and where it is. And he knows that this is a deal breaker with the American people. And his only game here is, well, table it.
And the biggest problem, I think, for Mayorkas and for the Democrats is not the willful aiding of criminal enterprises to cross the border, which would be the cartels and everything, the fentanyl and everything else, and in a calculated way allowing that to happen, opening up the borders for that to happen. The thing that hit popular culture, and that's the thing you always have to be scared of when something goes from politics to popular culture, and that's Mayorkas sitting there over and over again. The border is secure, while scenes of chaos happens behind you.
Mm-hmm.
You can't win that. Yeah. There's no way to spin that with the American public.
Right.
And so they can sit there and they can bring up all this evidence, and what is the response going to be from the Democrats, the defenders of Mayorkas here? They know it'll be a nightmare, and they don't want this going on. Now, when exactly the trial would happen, I guess it would be right now. In the next month, it was going to go forward. Schumer, I guarantee, will table it and try to get rid of it in a day.
Yep. No, that seems to be the consensus, that's going to be his play.
And I think that's maybe one of the reasons that Republicans have delayed this, so they have a week at least to pound it before Schumer shuts it down, so they can say, see, we all know what happened here. We all know that this was calculated. Everyone knew that the cartels were going to make billions of dollars opening up the border like this. We've seen the fentanyl come in to the country. We've seen the number, 800 migrants who have died at the border. And they've got on tape Mayorkas over and over again saying the border is secure, the border is secure, the border is secure.
Yep.
Doesn't matter whether he's kicked out of office or not, because whoever is the next director of Homeland Security is going to do the same thing under the Biden administration.
Yep. There won't be a change in how they are going to govern the border or not govern the border. And the thing here too is that as bad as the blue cities are seeing it right now and waking up to a problem that border states and border cities have been dealing with for a long, long time, it's right now the move by the cartels is unbelievable, because they know that if they can get set up under the Biden administration with the way it is now, with the broken border, the open border right now, if they can get a stronghold right now on operations inside the U.S. before there's a change in administrations, then that's going to be their key to a long-term business in the United States. And they've been operating in the U.S. for a long, long time. This is something that they know, and anybody coming here knows. January 20th could be the turnaround for you, and that could be your last chance, January 19th of next year. And if you don't get it done before then all bets are off.
So Ted Cruz and the Senate Republicans, they want this brought forward because still it's the number one or number two issue, the border with the American public. And so you bring it up right now, and it doesn't matter whether Mayorkas is kicked out of office or not. That's not the point. The point is all the damning evidence.
Yeah.
And repeating it over and over again. Mayorkas saying the border is secure. Because they'll play those tapes over and over again. Mm-hmm. And so it's to show the damage, and it's very tough for the public not to pay attention, or the media not to pay attention to the impeachment. And it doesn't really matter whether the media covers it or not. It'll be all over social media. It'll be all over the internet.
Yep.
So people will know what's going on. And it's just another impression on the number one issue, a number of impressions to the American public on the number one issue, especially recently, which has been immigration.
Yep.
Even beating inflation, or the border, should I say.
Right.
So that's why Schumer will probably try to shut it down in a day.
Yeah, I think it's going to work very quickly on this.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the top of the hour, what Eric and I have said about the media all along is exactly what liberal members of the media who are upset that the media has lost any type of journalistic integrity are actually saying. New article out yesterday that we'll get to here. Fascinating. I mean, just fascinating, because it's exactly what we've said. You can't differ at all for people that say, well, you guys are exaggerating it. Well, this is somebody inside the liberal media.
Yeah.
That came out and just said, and his name, everything else, and said,
Yep.
Been there for 25 years. I've seen the change. Here's what it's about. We'll get to that.
And here's the difference. And wow, it's pretty amazing.
And also, this headline interests me. Strip club sued by dancers over socialist tip system. I don't know if we'll be able to get into any type of details or minutia of this particular article.
Probably not.
Yeah.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The show's interrupting my reading.
Yeah, what are you reading?
This story here from Fox Business. 2 dancers at an Alabama strip club are suing their former employer over several alleged violations that include a socialist tip-sharing system. The former dancers at Sammy's Strip Club in Birmingham, Alabama, said the club owners allegedly forced a socialist economic system by requiring them to share their tips among the club's staff as part of an illegal tipping pool. Club owners forced a socialist economic system on the dancers, mandating they subsidize their co-workers, The lawsuit filed in the Northern District of Alabama on Sunday said the two dancers who were not identified in the lawsuit said they were classified as independent contractors and therefore denied minimum wage and overtime. During their time being employed by defendants, the plaintiffs were denied minimum wage payments and denied overtime as part of a defendant's scheme to classify plaintiffs and other dancers and entertainers as independent contractors, the lawsuit states. Citing the Department of Labor, the suit alleges that this scheme is found in a growing number of U.S. workplaces as a means to cut costs and avoid compliance with labor laws. The dancers also said club owners would force them to pay a kickback called a house fee to work, and the club would increase his fee later in the night, according to the lawsuit. Defendants would also force plaintiffs to pay kickbacks to the club just to work. The former dancers are seeking $100,000. 10 other unnamed Sammy's employees are also listed as defendants.
Huh.
So that's interesting. Now, if I'm assuming that if you're in that business, you could be an independent contractor.
I guess that's how it works.
Well,
I
I
don't know.
mean, I really don't pay attention to the strip club industry much.
Yeah.
But weren't there in the past? I do remember
Strip Club Weekly.
No, but
my subscription expired.
No, but they would bring in. Need to be sensitive here. They would bring in national talent.
Well, remember the story with Stormy Daniels being brought in to all these clubs?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
That's a great example.
Right, yeah.
I remember. Do you remember Morgana, the kissing bandit?
Yeah.
She would come at baseball games and run out Major League Baseball games and kiss the players.
Mm-hmm. She had huge hands.
Well, she had again being very gentle here to make sure we are in compliance with all FCC rules and regulations, so we cannot be accused of attempting to cater to people's worst sexual instincts.
Or body shame.
Or body shame.
Yeah.
I forgot about body
Yeah,
shaming.
you got to be careful of that.
And I don't know if I'm...
That's the larger crime these days.
I don't think this is body shaming, but she probably had breasts the size of Texas.
Yeah.
I think that would be safe to say.
Right.
And so I remember this had to be in the 80s when she was running onto Major League ball fields, and you would see the advertisements in newspapers all the time that she was, appearing at, this strip club and that strip club. So obviously she was an independent contractor.
Yeah, okay.
She's going and doing it.
Yeah.
And so, but now that's at the national level. Do they do that? I have no idea how that business works.
I don't know.
But if you come in, is it like, I hate to say because I know the businesses are different, but I know people that, that cut hair, that rent their space.
That's the thing I thought of when they talked about the kickback here, the fee, what they call it, a house fee.
House fee.
And I thought, okay, is that different than a percentage? If it's a percentage in terms of the labor laws, because I know that at a number of haircutting places and salons, you essentially rent the space from the owner.
Right.
I have a family member who owns one out in West Texas, and she has a number of in that area, probably all of the stylists and makeup people and people who do hair dye and everything else. It's a pretty big operation.
But if you are an independent contractor there,
you're paying one rent fee. I
right,
think
one rent fee, but then you go in as a customer, you tip. I'm from the old school. You tip your barber, because I go to a barber, not a hairstylist.
Uh-huh.
That's how you know I'm old.
Yeah.
can't say. I went to my stylist the other day, and but they're not forced to share, as far as I know, their tips, are they?
I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case at all.
And I would
could be wrong. There could be, I guess, different agreements in different places, but I wouldn't see that as an incentive. You pay the flat fee to rent the booth space, the chair, or whatever,
right,
and that's your, that's your business right there. And then you just bring in all the clientele that you can.
So as an independent contractor, I could see a club, again, they say they're not getting paid minimum wage. If you have a following, just like a band or whatever, can you charge a cover fee at the door? There's so much when you start talking about independent contractors.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Then there's a DJ, because I know that's something that happens, that you'll have, if the strippers will share, their tips with the DJ, that's required at times.
Well, often there is the house tip jar that basically all the tips are shared in different, restaurants and operations and everything else, and you're just helping to fill the jar for everybody, and they split it at the end of the night. I guess it depends on what the agreement is. My advice would be maybe you just get into another line of work. If you're complaining, you're not even making minimum wage. If you're not making money, I don't know what the incentive is then. But you go after the club, hoping to get back pay, I guess.
Now, again, since I've only been in a strip joint once, and it was by accident.
You put your clothes on immediately and left.
By the way, that's a great way to tell a story, isn't it?
Yeah.
'Cause I was in a strip joint once, but it was by accident. Yeah, come on. Oh, come on now. What are you talking about? It's like, oh, did you get drunk by accident too?
Yeah.
What's going on? How can you make that case?
Yeah, right.
I'll make the case. It's when I was in radio, when I first got into radio, and this would have been 83. And my overnight guy.
Gosh, they're the worst.
My overnight guy,
Yeah.
who, because I worked the morning show, he would fall asleep with a cigarette in his hand, and you could hear the record going. One time I went and I slept. I was out, and I was like, I'm going to sleep in the front lobby. And when I woke up, there was no sound from the monitor, in the receptionist area.
Yeah.
He was completely asleep.
Yeah.
But he said, hey, you need to come see Pensacola with me. You need to come see downtown Pensacola and everything else. And it's like, okay, cool.
Turns out that was the name of a dancer, downtown Pensacola. Ladies and
I like
gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, downtown Pensacola.
Downtown Penny.
Yeah.
And it was we went into the row of bars down there, and I remember going into one. It was a pretty big place, really fancy place, and all of a sudden we look, and who's on stage? Remember Leon Redbone, "Shine on Harvest Moon," shine on. He's up there alone. I mean, there's like probably 700, tables and chairs, everything else set up, and we're there like noon. Because that's when we went, and so nothing was crowded, and there he is, just sitting there, strumming on the guitar. Hello, boys, what's up? Just wave to us. Hello. Like, wow, that was weird. We don't want to bother him. We're the only people in the place looking at him, and there was nobody. He just walked right in the bar. It was a huge bar, so we walked across the street to the bar. That's in an officer and officer and a gentleman, which was Trader John's.
Okay.
And all Ken told me was, he just said, hey, he goes, it's a very popular Navy bar. The memorabilia is all over there. Now it's closed. I think it closed. Trader John died, I think, late 90s, whatever. But I went in and met him. And it was only me, him, and Ken at the bar. There's nobody else in there.
Right.
And we're sitting at the bar. I'm looking at the memorabilia, seeing some Kennedy signatures in there. It's like, okay, that makes sense. And all of a sudden, I turn around, and there's like this room in the back. I can see the light in the room, and the door was like open. And I went, I'll never forget. I look at Ken and Trader John right there. I went, there's naked women in the back. I swear, when I was young, I was so damn naive. Naked women in the back, look. They're like, Gary, it's a strip joint.
Someone find them some clothes.
But he was great. I mean, there's actually a book. There's actually a book on, out on the whole thing and about his, Trader John. And he was, he was a very eclectic kind of guy. And it was known that you would go in and you didn't, it's whatever he wanted to charge you for a beer. So it wasn't like he wouldn't even have a set price at times. I'm like, well, whatever. But I just remember him being very harassing the hell out of me. Then I was dead after that. It's like, I don't know. And then Ken sits there and goes, well, you talked to Trader John for a while. I'm going back. I'm going to the back room. So he goes, and he knew all of them. Ken knew all the strippers. And I'm just like, you don't go to strip joints much. I go, this is the first one, and it was by accident. So, so that was it. And then we left, and I only saw them from a distance. I didn't go back to the room.
Okay. Good to know.
My mother was alive then,
Yeah.
so I didn't go back to the room.
Good to know.
I'm kidding.
Good to know.
I have no interest. Anybody knows me? I'm not paying $15 for a cocktail.
Well, I think to myself, this labor dispute here, to what end? You're trying to get back pay. What are you trying to get here? I mean, given the business, you're probably not, even if you win it, you're not really going to win, are you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I know that people share tips. That's done. But you're an independent. The difference is you're an independent contractor, and if you pay for the floor space, just like we said for a hairstylist paying for their chair and their little section, and they pay rent for that.
Yeah, we'll give you so much time on stage per night or whatever, and here's the fee.
Here's the fee for it, right? Now, what it means is you're not a name.
Yeah.
Because if you're a name brand, you charge cover at the door.
You're bringing customers with you.
And you would hopefully collect all of what's at the door, and they would make their money through the alcohol.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know what the specific labor law might be for Alabama, but it is interesting.
Yeah.
I just love it. It's like socialist tipping system.
Well, I wish I'd known that when I was in a band. Hey, this is socialist. Look, I'm the youngest one here. I should earn more.
Well, yeah,
I've got to split it with the rest of the band. Are you kidding me?
You were just in a rock band. They didn't charge you. Could you imagine if they charged rock bands? They just didn't pay you much.
Well, it used to be you kind of had to in certain areas, like some friends of mine out in L.A., you had to go rent the venue yourself. You had to print the flyers, and you had to do a lot of that. And in places that are flooded with that kind of live music scene, like Austin, I don't think it's still the case, but a lot of those musicians get like nothing. They're playing for the showcase basically, and they're not getting paid much at all. I mean, it's not a good living anyway. You kind of have to make a name for yourself.
I had friends that were in a band, and they were that good. They were charging like $10 cover charge in 75.
Yeah.
To go in, and people would be lined up out the door.
Yeah.
And they really played just Buffalo, Cleveland, and maybe Pittsburgh and places in between.
Yeah.
But that was enough to have them constantly touring. And the place that we saw them at was always sold out, and it was 1,500 people.
Yeah.
So they were pulling in, and they got the door. They were pulling in 15,000 a night just as a club band. That doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, no. I mean, we could pack a place just with our friends. I mean, between 5 of us, we had, so many friends. Everybody knew us. If we were playing, our friends were there. And that was always great. That was good. And then when you have to step out of your own territory, that's where the real test comes in. Now nobody knows you.
Well, they play Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. They play 3 shows.
Yeah.
Go to a town and play 3 shows at the same club.
Mm-hmm.
Sell out every one.
Yeah.
Walk out with $45,000 for 3 days.
Wow.
Back in 75. 866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on compliance, safety, accountability. Compliance, Safety, Accountability, or CSA, is the FMCSA Safety, Compliance, and Enforcement Program. Its goal is to hold motor carriers and drivers accountable for highway safety and to reduce crashes, injuries, and fatalities on our roads. CSA does this by assessing the safety performance of motor carriers and drivers based on data collected during roadside inspections, crash reports, and FMCSA investigations. Based on the data that is compiled, motor carriers are assigned a score. The carrier is then grouped with other carriers who have had a similar number of safety events. Carrier scores within the group are then ranked to determine intervention priority. Low scores are better, so carriers with the highest scores are those that are most likely to be targeted for intervention by the FMCSA. Interventions range in severity and may include warning letters, roadside, off-site, or on-site inspections, civil penalties, or operation out-of-service orders. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
Shut Eye Radio, he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, the oldest man in the world, 111 years old.
Wow.
Just what he had to say. Don't do too much of anything, even exercise. Too much of anything will kill you.
All right.
I just love
Good
that.
advice.
But coming up, there was a fascinating article written by someone who works for NPR and came out yesterday in the Free Press, Barry Weiss's Free Press. I've been at NPR for 25 years. Here's how we lost America's trust. Now, we've stated a lot about the media, how they're not journalists anymore, they're political activists. And wait till you hear the things that he says, which almost mirror to the word things that we've said about the media, mainstream media, over the last couple of decades.
Yeah.
That coming up next.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. A fascinating article written, came out yesterday in the Free Press. That's Barry Weiss, who was part of the Twitter files. She is the former New York Times writer that actually said, liberals you can get, who actually said Trump could get her vote. Remember that one?
Right.
She, after being part of the Twitter files, created what's called the Free Press. It's subscription-based, but it's a lot of people on there are people, old-school liberals, that are looking what the Democratic Party is doing right now and is absolutely horrified by it.
Right.
Well, this was an article written by a man by the name of Yuri Berliner, and the article is, here's the headline, I've been at NPR for 25 years. Here's how we lost America's trust. A veteran of the public radio institution says the network lost its way when it started telling listeners how to think. And it gets into the fact that, I'll read the first couple of paragraphs just to set the table a little bit. You know the stereotype of an NPR listener, an EV driving, Wordle playing, tote bag carrying coastal elite. It doesn't particularly describe me, but it's not far off. I'm Sarah Lawrence educated, was raised by a lesbian peace activist mother. I drive a Subaru, and Spotify says my listening habits are more similar to people in Berkeley. What? I have to ask this question. What type of music do people in Berkeley listen to? He doesn't get into that, but that was the question that I had. What is it? What are you listening to that comes up on Spotify? You most likely are listening to music that they listen to in Berkeley. Is it old Jefferson Airplane? I mean, it's
Neil Young, REM, Green Day.
Oh, Rage Against the Machine.
Green Day, Rage Against the Machine. Yeah.
He said, I fit the NPR mold. I cop to that. So when I got the job here 25 years ago, I never looked back. As a senior editor on the business desk where news is always breaking, we've covered upheavals in the workplace, supermarket prices, social media, and AI. It's true, NPR has always had a liberal bent. But during most of my tenure here, an open-minded, curious culture prevailed. We were nerdy, but not knee-jerk activist or scolding. Who said a while back that they're all political activists? Oh, the idiots on Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
In recent years, however, that has changed. Today, those who listen to NPR or read its coverage online find something different. The distilled worldview of a very small segment of the U.S. population. If you are conservative, you will read this and say, duh, it's always been this way, but it hasn't. And he said, for decades since the founding in 1970, a wide number of Americans tuned in to NPR for reliable journalism and gorgeous audio pieces with birds singing in the Amazon. Millions came to us for conversations that expose us to voices around the country and the world radically different from our own, engaging precisely because they were unguarded and unpredictable. No image generated more pride within NPR than a farmer listening to Morning Edition from his or her tractor at sunrise. I bet you that's not happening as much anymore.
Yeah.
Back in 2011, although NPR's audience tilted a bit to the left, it still bore a resemblance to America at large. 26% of listeners described themselves as conservative. 23% as middle of the road. 37% as liberal. By 2023, the picture was completely different. Only 11% described themselves as very or somewhat conservative, 21% middle of the road, and 67% of listeners said they were very or somewhat liberal. We weren't just losing conservatives, we were losing moderates and traditional liberals. An open-minded spirit no longer exists within NPR, and now predictably we don't have an audience that reflects America. That wouldn't be a problem for an openly biased news outlet serving only a niche audience, but for NPR, which purports to consider all things, that's a good one, it's devastating both for journalism and its business model. By the way, I was going through the other day, I was just going through my over-the-air channels, and it was NPR, and it was the NPR president doing an interview. And I stayed for a couple of minutes, and I'm like, okay, this is all blah, 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 blah. It didn't go anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
Yada, yada, yada. So I ended up turning it, but I was like, it's just interesting that the NPR president is there. And then I thought to myself, when you alienate half of an audience and you are trying to get people, to volunteer their money to you, probably not smart to alienate 50% of your audience. Or it might not have been 50%, but 30% of your audience.
Significant chunk.
Right. Yep. But then they get to the point here. This is the most important part, I think, of this entire article here, because it's exactly what we have said for the longest time. Like many unfortunate things, the rise of advocacy took off with Donald Trump. As in many newsrooms, his election in 2016 was greeted at NPR with a mixture of disbelief, anger, and despair. Just to note, I eagerly voted against Trump twice, but felt we were obliged to cover him fairly. But what began as tough, straightforward coverage of a belligerent, truth-impaired president veered towards efforts to damage or topple Trump's presidency. Persistent rumors that the Trump campaign colluded with Russia over the election became the catnip that drove reporting. At NPR, we hitched our wagon to Trump's most visible antagonist, Representative Adam Schiff. Schiff, who was the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, became NPR's guiding hand, its ever-present muse. By my count, NPR host interviewed Schiff 25 times about Trump and Russia. During many of those conversations, Schiff alluded to purported evidence of collusion. The Schiff talking points became the drumbeat of NPR news reports. But when the Mueller report found no credible evidence of collusion, NPR's coverage was notably sparse. Russiagate quietly faded from our programming. It is one thing to swing and miss on a major story. Unfortunately, it happens. You follow the wrong leads, you get misled by sources you trusted, you're emotionally invested in a narrative, and bits of circumstantial evidence never add up. It's bad to blow a big story. What's worse is to pretend it never happened. To move on with no mea culpas, no self-reflection, especially when you expect high standards of transparency from public figures and institutions, but don't practice those standards yourself. That's what shatters trust and engenders cynicism and the media. Russiagate was not NPR's only miscue. By the way, I'm glad he brought up Adam Schiff. He didn't say it specifically, but Adam Schiff made all these allegations. None were true.
Right.
Adam Schiff lied to NPR time after time after time again. I wonder if they still bring him on.
That's a good question.
That would be my next question.
Does he still have any credibility anywhere? Yeah. Well, if you're an activist in the media, then he does, because you'll use him for anything and everything.
Then they go to the next one. In October of 2020, the New York Post published the explosive report about a laptop Hunter Biden abandoned at a Delaware computer shop containing emails about his sordid business dealings. With the election only weeks away, NPR turned a blind eye. Here's how NPR's managing editor for news at the time explained the thinking. Remember, we covered this. We don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories, and we don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions. That's a quote. But it wasn't a pure distraction or a product of Russia disinformation, as dozens of former and current intelligence officials suggested. The laptop did belong to Hunter Biden. Its contents revealed his connection to the corrupt world of multi-billion-dollar influence peddling and its possible implications for his father. The laptop was newsworthy, but the timeless journalistic instinct of following a hot story lead was being squelched. During a meeting with colleagues, I listed as one of NPR's best and most fair-minded journalists, said it was good that we weren't following the laptop story because it could help Trump. When the essential facts of the Post reporting were confirmed and the emails verified independently about a year and a half later, we could have fessed up to our misjudgment, but just like Russia collusion, we didn't make the choice for transparency. Politics also intruded in NPR's COVID coverage, most notably in reporting of the origin of the pandemic. One of the most dismal aspects of COVID journalism is how quickly it defaulted to ideological storylines. For example, there was Team Natural Origin supporting the hypothesis that the virus came from a wild animal market in Wuhan, China, and on the other side, Team Lab Leak leaning into the idea that the virus escaped from a Wuhan lab. The lab leak theory came in for rough treatment almost immediately, dismissed as racist. and a right-wing conspiracy theory. Anthony Fauci and former NIH head Francis Collins represented the public health establishment, were its most notable critics, and that was enough for NPR. We became fervent members of Team Natural Origin, even declaring that the lab leak had been debunked by scientists, but that wasn't the case. When word first broke of the mysterious virus in Wuhan, a number of leading scientists immediately suspected it could have leaked from a lab there conducting experiments on bat coronavirus. This was in January of 2020, during calmer moments before the global pandemic had been declared and before fear spread and politics intruded. Reporting on the possible lab leak soon became radioactive. Fauci and Collins apparently encouraged the March publication of an influential scientific paper. Its authors wrote they didn't believe any type of laboratory-based scenario is plausible, but the lab leak hypothesis wouldn't die, and understandably so. In private, even some of the scientists who penned the article dismissing it sounded a different tune. One of the authors, a biologist at Edinburgh University, wrote to his colleagues, "I literally swivel day by day thinking it is a lab escape or natural." And then it goes over the entire thing about how NPR didn't do their job. When a colleague on our science desk was asked why they were so dismissive of the lab leak, the response was odd. The colleague compared it to the Bush administration's unfounded argument that Iraq possessed weapons of mass destruction, apparently meaning we won't get fooled again. But these two events were not even remotely related. Again, politics were blotting out the curiosity and independence that ought to have been driving our work. Yeah, but it doesn't, because you're political activists.
Well, here's the thing. What caused you to wear the blinders and not ask the questions all along the way? Because many of us, and we don't have to have insider information or sources, knew that it was plausible that it was a lab leak. And it was just a theory that was being discussed, but you couldn't do that. It was being shut down. So this idea of giving up, once you've been totally disproven, I could see that. There's nowhere for you to go. You sound like somebody who's capable of critical thinking. I'm just wondering why it didn't kick in beforehand.
But, when we get the criticism, you guys are making this stuff up. No, we're not.
Nope.
There it is right there.
Yep.
From somebody inside NPR, exactly what we and others have said is inside the mainstream media.
Yep.
It's political activism. It's no longer journalism.
I'm glad they're doing good work at the Free Press, by the way.
Well, wonder how long he's going to keep his job. Apparently, he's still at NPR.
Mm-hmm. Well, at least this got out.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Look, it was Yuri Berliner who wrote that column. It's not anything that we didn't know.
Right.
But it's fascinating to see it's somebody who has been with NPR for the last quarter of a century.
I guess when you live in that bubble, you just learn to trust whatever, process that you put into place, for you as a journalist. But I just, you have to know that many of them, your colleagues, they're activists. They're not journalists. They don't care about journalism.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.